So let's tell you what happened at the White House. The U.S. President Donald Trump and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy clashed repeatedly in the meeting at the White House. Zelenskyy, in fact, urged Trump to be cautious with Russia, and Trump accused him of being disrespectful to the United States. In fact, the Ukrainian president then warned Trump that Putin's promises of peace cannot be trusted, and the United States hit back. In 10 minutes of the nearly 45-minute engagement, it turned into a complete intense back and forth, with Trump almost shouting and raising his voice at Zelenskyy. Take a look at the heated exchange.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to...
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring people, you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this.
I'm not dictating.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this entire meeting, you said thank you.
Even today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the President who's trying to save your country.
Now, after this heated exchange, Zelenskyy abruptly left the White House without signing a critical minerals deal with the United States that Trump had demanded and suggested was a condition for future support for Ukraine. The joint press conference between the two leaders was also cancelled. Trump, in a social media post, also accused Zelenskyy of disrespecting the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office, and added that Zelenskyy can come back when he is ready for peace. Let's go across to my colleague Rishabh, who's joining us on the broadcast with the details of what this means and what has happened after this meeting. Rishabh, completely unprecedented what we saw at the Oval Office with the U.S. President Donald Trump and Zelenskyy getting into a heated war of words, all of it taking place right in front of the media. In fact, Trump has now also said that Ukraine is not battling for peace. How are things going to proceed from here?
Well, Pratibha, if we look at the paradigm shift of Washington, the way, Russia being aggressive for 3 years suddenly has become the, side that wants peace. This is a complete policy change from Washington, and this will definitely change the order in which this crisis or the Russia-Ukraine war has furthered in last 3 years. As of now, in last 12 hours, not even 12 hours for that matter, last 10 hours, the way things have developed post the White House episode between Vance, Donald Trump and Zelenskyy, Ukraine stands firm with, Europe stands firm with Ukraine. But if that is enough or not is a million-dollar question. A. B. US has been very clear that Zelenskyy doesn't want peace. and that is something that is in first comment from the White House or the President of the United States, that Zelensky doesn't want peace. Having said that, it will be interesting to see whether the European Union, Commission, Council, Parliament, or for that matter, leaders like Macron, leaders like Stammer, leaders like Albanese, or for that matter, Justin Trudeau as well, be able to convince the Trump administration to convince Trump to go soft on Ukraine. Whether that will happen or not is a million-dollar question. As of now, US is clear. Ukraine doesn't have a chance. They will have to agree to the situation, the ground situation that exists.
Absolutely. In fact, Rishabh, Donald Trump said that the Ukrainian president was disrespectful to the United States. Let's take our viewers through the post that he put out. And this was after that exchange, after that meeting. He says, "We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learnt that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion, and I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace." So he says it is Zelensky who's not ready for peace. If America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in the negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace. And then he goes on to say he disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace. So this is what Donald Trump said after that heated exchange. Interestingly, Zelensky spoke as well after this meeting, and he said that the talks will improve and the relations between US and Ukraine will improve. In fact, we are breaking updates coming in. As he departed for Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump did actually speak to the media again, where he lashed out at the Ukrainian president, saying he overplayed his hand in the Oval Office. Take a look.
We had a meeting today, as you know, with President Zelensky, and I would say it didn't work out exactly great from his standpoint. I think he very much overplayed his hand. We're looking for peace. We're not looking for somebody that's going to sign up as strong power and then not make peace because they feel emboldened, and that's what I saw happening.
Senior consulting editor Srinjoy Chaudhary joins us on the broadcast. Srinjoy, completely unprecedented. We've not seen something like this happen ever before. At the Oval Office, two world leaders fighting it out, and it resulted with the meeting ending abruptly and Zelensky leaving from there. Trump very clearly saying that Zelensky has disrespected the United States, though Ukraine is still holding on to the pace that things will improve. What next?
It's such a catastrophic moment. It's also, as you rightly said, unprecedented. There has never, ever been a moment like this in the White House when there is a public fight in front of the world media between two leaders, the visiting president and an American president. There never has been. Now, what does this mean? It means that currently America does not want to continue to support Ukraine militarily and economically. If that is so, the next question is, can anyone else? Can a coalition of all of Europe, Australia, Canada, and so on, get together and support Ukraine in a way that it will continue to fight? As of now, the answer seems to be very difficult. Without American support, it's not likely that Ukraine will continue the war with great success. So if that is so, then we have to assume that something will have to give so that the situation in Ukraine is resolved. It's a very difficult situation for Zelensky because on the one hand, he has fought, and Trump acknowledged that his soldiers have fought very bravely and very well for 3 years. But Trump wants peace. And Trump wants peace on his terms and nobody else. So which means that the war has stopped immediately. And if the war stops immediately, it means that a large section of Ukraine, Luhansk, Crimea, and places like that, will continue to stay in Russian hands. Now, that is not what Zelensky wants. That is not what Ukraine wants. If that is so, then what happens next? Can you get the weapons you need from Europe, Australia, and or Canada and other countries?
Yes.
That's a very difficult question to answer.
Because the leaders from Europe have come out in support of Ukraine, but are they going to fight the war for Ukraine, and can they really overstep in this matter, especially considering U.S. has made its stance very clear, saying we are not signing up for the Ukraine war? Thank you for joining us with those details, Srinjoy. Former diplomat Ashok Sajanha joins us on the broadcast. Good morning and welcome to the show. Ambassador, first I want to ask you, in your years of diplomacy, have you ever seen a situation like this? Two world leaders meeting at the Oval Office and it escalates into a shouting match?
Never, never. I think this is quite unusual. I don't think it has been equaled by anything before that. You know, Oval Office is, of course, the office of the most powerful leader of the world. So not even in lesser offices, you know, any other sort of with prime ministers or presidents have I ever witnessed or ever seen or heard anything like this happening. I think when it happened Indian time late last evening, I think it was absolutely amazing, appalling as to the way the whole thing descended, you know, after about 35 minutes or so of their interaction with the press. So I think going forward, we'll really have to see, I think the Americans will really have to see whether, you know, this is a good format of, because, otherwise, you know, it would have been signed, there would have been some discussion, there would have been some negotiations, but for the whole thing to sort of, you know, blow up in this manner, only because the press was asking some questions, and I think Mr. Zelenskyy also felt compelled to respond and to sort of, you know, put forward his own point of view. But all that it's said and done, I think ultimately it is the outcome is very bad. It's very bad for Ukraine particularly, but it's also bad for America. It's bad for the democratic world as such, because we need to come to you know, some sort of a negotiated peace deal, negotiated agreement in Ukraine. And that appears to have been much further, and it has put Mr. Zelenskyy and Ukraine in a much worse bind, and with their back to the wall, and you know, putting them in a corner, really.
Okay, all right. In fact, after that tense exchange at the White House, the Ukrainian president sought to downplay these tensions, and he said that U.S. Ukraine ties go beyond just two presidents. He was speaking to the U.S. media when he expressed some optimism, stating that the relationship can be repaired. Let's listen in.
Very thankful to Americans for all your support. You did a lot. I'm thankful to President Trump and to Congress bipartisan support. And I was always very thankful from all our people. You helped us a lot from the very beginning during 3 years of full-scale invasion. You helped us to survive. Nobody wants to finish more than we, because we in Ukraine, we are in this war. We are in this battle, and battle for freedom, for our lives. So I'm just telling that I think that we have to be on the same side, and I hope that the president on our side together with us, and that is very important to stop Putin. And I heard from President Trump a lot of times that he will stop the war, and I hope he will. I respect American people, and if I don't know if I think that we have to be very open and very honest, and I'm not sure that we did something bad. I think maybe sometimes some things we have to discuss out of media, with all respect to democracy and to a free media. But there are things where we have to understand the position of Ukraine and Ukrainians.
And remember, this is not the first time that we are hearing such words from Trump. Trump has also previously accused the Ukrainian president of riding the U.S. gravy train, which means taking advantage of the U.S. funds. It has only escalated now after that meeting. What does this mean for the Russia-Ukraine war? Welcome back. Well, after that embarrassing exchange of words at the Oval Office, the world leaders have now taken a stance. Several leaders from Europe have come out in support of Ukraine, and the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has also reaffirmed his country's support for Ukraine after the tense Oval Office exchange between the two leaders. Albanese, in fact, stated that Australia stands with Ukraine, underscoring the continued international backing for Kyiv.
We stand with Ukraine. I've had meetings with President Zelenskyy on multiple occasions, including, of course, in Kyiv, in Ukraine, where I travelled very early on in my Prime Ministership. And this year, we've seen that land war in Europe go on for 3 years. The people of Ukraine are fighting not just for their own national sovereignty. They are fighting for the international rule of law. Australia has committed some $1.5 billion to help Ukraine defend itself. More than $1.3 billion of that is military support. We will continue to stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes, because this is the struggle of a democratic nation versus an authoritarian regime led by Vladimir Putin, who clearly has imperialistic designs not just on Ukraine, but throughout that region.
The French President Emmanuel Macron also reiterated his strong support for Ukraine, calling Russia the aggressor and emphasizing the need to continue aid and sanctions. In a social media post, Macron, in fact, thanked allies, including the United States, Europe, Canada and Japan, for standing with Kyiv, stating that Ukraine is fighting for its dignity, independence and security of Europe. So, Ambassador, how do you see this play out? Because the United States has made its plan very, very clear. It has told clearly in as many words that we are not going to fund this war and we are not in favor of continuation of the war. The nations in Europe have taken a stance already. Canada has spoken up. Australia has spoken up. But what is this really going to lead to? Are we going to see an escalating of tensions with the United States and the other nations, including Europe, Australia, as well as Canada? Or will the other nations fall in line because US is very, very clear that its stance is not going to change?
No, I think the future, particularly next couple of days are going to be very, very significant in this. We had really come to know ever since Trump came and, ever since he said that it was not Russia that invaded Ukraine and thereby implying that, it was something that Ukraine had done which, precipitated this conflict. From that time, it was known that Trump is going to side with Russia. And we've seen that in the United Nations, whether it is in the UN Security Council or the UN General Assembly, that he's been voting with Russia against the others, the European colleagues. So I think basically what Mr. Zelenskyy here wanted, possibly, if possible, more weaponry, but if that was not coming, at least security guarantees that when a ceasefire is established, then, then as the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said, that we want the United States to backstop the arrangements. That means there will be troops from France, there will be troops from UK, there will be troops from other European countries. But at least in terms of the intelligence and in terms of the air cover, there would be that assurance of the United States. And that would be a strong support as far as any ceasefire is concerned. So I think this is what was required. It is, quite clear for quite some time now since Mr. Trump took over that no more weaponry is going to go to Ukraine. So I think we'll really have to now balance this out. This is a huge fracture.
Yes.
Tomorrow, the meeting takes place in London, where Keir Starmer gets all the European leaders. We'll really have to wait and see what their stance and what their posture is.
Okay, so the world is going to nervously wait and see what's going to happen next, because Trump has told very clearly to Zelenskyy, you're gambling with world war and saying, come back when you're ready to peace, saying that it is Ukraine that does not want peace. Ambassador, thank you for joining us. With that, we're slipping into a very quick break here. We'll be right back. To stay with us.